good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and definitely not good night. You should be sleeping if it's nighttime. Welcome to HFLE for all we. And today we have a really impactful program on communication. And it's coming to you via the Barbados Association for Guidance Counselors. And with us today we have
Joel Jordan, Frederick Smith Secondary School.
And
Chanel Clark, Dollar Jordan Secondary School.
Great to have you all on board.
Nice to be here.
Today, the talk is all about communication. Now, let me say from the outset, a lot of us are always talking about communication and effective communication, but today we're going to be looking at what communication is, as well as we're going to look at some barriers to communication. That's right. I like to call it noise. Some people like to call it interference. But anything that stops the message from going through is a blockage, and we're going to be looking at some of those today, as well as how you can get rid of those blockages so that you get the message and so you can send the message that you so much need to send. So, ladies, we ready?
We're ready.
We are.
All right. So we're going to do a little example of something here to show you how communication works. I am going to send a message to Chanel, okay? Chanel is across all the way over there because we're doing social distancing. You see, so she's all the way over there. So I'm going to send a message to Chanel, okay? And I'm going to expect a response to let Chanel know, let me know that Chanel has received the message, okay? So watch this. Hello, Chanel.
Hello, Donna.
So the message was sent by me to Chanel.
I received.
And it was received by Chanel. And she, in turn, sent me a message called a response to let me know it was an appropriate message and it was an appropriate response and communication was complete.
Yes.
But now we have Miss Jewel. She's in the middle. And what she's going to do is she's going to find a way to block the message from getting to me, from me to Jewel over there, okay? So let's try that again. Hi, Chanel.
Hi, Donna. Joelle.
She got in the way. She got in the way.
She did.
So although Chanel received the message, when she was sending back the response, I couldn't get it because Miss Jewel
Tilted.
blocked
Yes.
us,
Yes.
right? I couldn't see her.
No.
I couldn't hear her because sometimes we have to rely on what we can see so that we know the message is coming. So she blocked it. So we will call Miss Jewel a barrier or noise or interference,
Yeah.
Hindrance.
a hindrance.
Yes.
She stopped the message. She blocked the communication. And you know, there's a whole heap of other names we can call Miss Jewel. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But that is the kind of description of what happens in communication when it's good, and sometimes what happens in communication when it's not so good, when we have interference. So I'm going to throw it out now to both Jewel and Chanel to have a little bit more discussion on, with them, what are some of the different parts of communication that they see and that they discuss sometimes with their students or with their parents or even with teachers.
Okay. So first, let me just start by saying that there are several types of communications, but I will probably just focus in on the four major ones. And these are verbal communications. This is just what I'm doing now. It all has to do with speech, all right, and words. Usually, this kind of communication is face-to-face, whereby you send a message and that message is received. But it's not always face-to-face. Sometimes you can have another mode would be through the television, through the radio. Anytime that you hear sound, that's like verbal communications. You're speaking with and you're listening to the other individual that is also sending the message. And then at another time, you can have something called the nonverbal communication. And what nonverbal is similarly to what Donna was doing just now, whereby when she called Charnel, I tilted forward so that Charnel would not even hear her. So sometimes you don't necessarily have to say anything for communication to happen, all right? Some of the examples then stemming from this nonverbal communication would be something looking like, say that you are in this situation whereby you cannot speak for whatever reason, and you decide, I have to get this message across. So you can use other modes. What can you do? You can do something looking like using a signal. You can use like a different message that we oftentimes refer to as gestures, whereby I look at an individual and then probably nod. You know, there's an international one whereby a person speaks and that person may be eating while they're talking and something gets cluttered within the throat. So they grab the throat. Anybody that sees another individual holding the throat like this, they automatically know that the person is choking. So nonverbal communication, you don't have to speak, but yet still, based upon those messages that you send, that's a clear identification of what is happening.
Jewel, can I add in something
you
here
can.
too for nonverbal communication? Signs, okay? Either the signs that are put up outside that tell you stop, walk here,
Right.
construction, you know, danger. Those all give messages to communicate something is going on. I don't know how much of you have been watching a lot of YouTube videos recently, but there are lots of funny videos where somebody is saying one thing and holding up a sign saying, help. This person can't cook. But they're saying they're saying one thing, but they're sending you the message in a different way through signs. Yes, that's great. Thank you, Cohen.
Yeah, interesting, and I'm glad that you said that because that was actually bringing me to my next point, which is visualizations. So visualizations in terms of, as Donna rightly said, the use of signs, the use of symbols, something looking like a map. You know, you may need directions, and I may not necessarily be able to say to you or call the names of the places to you that you need to go. But just by giving you a clear identification, maybe on a sketch, you can get yourself there. And that's another form of communication. So there are several forms, but the techniques that we use to communicate and the techniques that we use to get ourselves across to each other, we have to ensure that they are being sent and sent clearly, and that the sender is receiving them with the intention in which they were actually being sent.
Thank you very much. Chanel.
Yes, and along with the verbal, the nonverbal, and the visual, there is the written communication.
Yes.
And I often say, you know, when you send somebody a message, there's no way of using intonation to get over your meaning. So sometimes a written message can be misconstrued, it can be misunderstood, and what is written is not clear enough for somebody else to really get the true meaning. So that can become a blockage as well. But as Joelle was talking about the nonverbal communication, how many of you, including parents, know that when somebody gives you a look, a certain look, you know automatically, I better start what it is that I'm doing because I know what's going to come next.
Yeah.
So verbal communication, nonverbal communication, visual and written, these all help to get us from one phase to the next through life, and you know, whatever task we have to do, it's all about clear and proper communication.
Yes, Charnel, and as you rightly mentioned, and in terms of the written communication too, and then let's say in this technological era, you know, we send a lot of messages these days, and you have to be very, very, very careful. One important point that I would like to step in here to really quickly and say is that once regardless of whatever form of communication that you may use, once that message is sent, in some cases, it can never be recalled. So with communication, you have to think before you speak, think before you write, think before you begin to visualize, because at the end of the day, your communication can indeed affect you.
So what we're going to do now, ladies, is to take the next few minutes to look at ways that we can break those barriers. We can soften the noise. We can get rid of the interference and get straight through to that message, have it delivered appropriately, have it received appropriately, so that the whole model can continue to flow. All right? So we've looked at the barriers. Let's start with you, Chanel. What are a couple of ways, or maybe we can do one and then Jill can do one and we can take it at, how can we break down the noise?
Something you alluded to just now, and that is active listening, not just hearing what the person is saying, but actually listening to hear, to know exactly the meaning. And as Joel said earlier, if you don't understand or if you didn't hear, you say so and ask for clarification, because it's nothing like a misinterpreted message and you doing what totally opposite of what was said.
Right. Thank you, Chanel. So active listening is one very great aspect of breaking down those barriers and killing some of that noise. Jewel?
So I will have to say, in terms of asking the individual, to just kindly repeat if you are uncertain. Oftentimes I find that even in communications, as Shana mentioned, within the classroom, a lot of class disruption, it exists when really and truly it does not have to. If somebody tells you something, or if the teacher gives you a message and you do not understand, or where it's being communicated to you, you just sit there and everybody is sitting there and the teacher may say, okay, class, and raise your hand if you don't understand. Within you, you know that you do not understand. That's the opportune time for you to open your mouth and say, excuse me, teacher, can you please go back over that again? But you don't. Why? Because you look to the left, everybody is silent. You look to the right, everybody is silent. But if it is that, when it comes to your communication, if it is that you do not open your mouth and you do not, take that assertive stand, then what will happen is that you, inadvertently, you will hurt yourself. So what I would say, one of the major things that you must do in terms of communication and breaking down these barriers is to ask questions, but you ask questions very politely. Somebody will hear you. And if the first person don't respond to you, that's okay. Just say thank you, go on to another individual.
All right, that's a very good one. Always ask and don't stop until you get an answer.
Sure. Indeed.
What I would like to suggest is that you stop. Stop assuming a few things. Number one, stop assuming that your message is not important because you are just, and you fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I am just a student. I am just a mother.
A teenager.
I'm just a teenager. I'm just a teacher. Stop assuming that you do not have a valuable message because you are just a. Okay? 2, stop assuming that the other person will never want to receive your message because they are, and you fill in that blank. They are better than I am. They are richer than I am. They are more important than I am. They are smarter than I am. They come from a better home than where I come from. Stop assuming that that other person is not going to want to hear your message because of who they are. Whether it's older, younger, a different complexion, from a different country, stop. That breaks the message up before it even gets out of your mouth. Okay? And, the other thing is to also try very hard, at least once in a while, to go and stand in the place of the receiver of your message.
Oh, yeah.
And ask yourself, did they really hear what I thought I said?
They did understand.
Did they understand? Did they take it up? For example, I'm a mother. And whenever my children come and say, Mommy, I love you, all sugary, my response is, what do you want? You understand? Right? And sometimes they have to show that, yeah, yeah, Mommy, we really do love you. But other times, that is how they say, well, yeah, Mommy, I love you, and there's something that they want, right? So, but you have to make sure that you stop assuming that what you think you've said is what you know that that other person has
Received,
heard
yeah.
or received, right? Because that can really break the message up, not just in that instance, but for the future, all right? You want to teach yourself that you are valuable and you have something valuable to contribute. Say it and know that we are going to be there to hear it. We may not agree. The response is not necessarily what you would want to hear, but it is an appropriate response because it is in direct communication with what you are saying. All right? And do y'all want to try another example of that, an inappropriate response? Okay, you tell me, Chanel, you tell me something, send me a message, and I'm going to reply inappropriately. And let's see how that looks.
So Donna, what did you have for school today in terms of lunch?
When I turned on the radio this morning, the weatherman said it was going to be sunny, 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 and we're not going to have any rain.
Did she even hear what I asked?
Exactly. So sometimes the message is totally inappropriate. Now ask me that same thing, but ask it so that I will give you something you want to hear. You're trying to get a particular answer, maybe for a request.
Okay.
All right? So watch this now.
Donna, did you have lunch today?
Yes, I had lunch.
And was it a good meal?
Well, who prepared this lunch?
I don't know at this point.
Okay, because if it was you that prepared it, it was all right.
Okay. So that's an appropriate response.
An appropriate response,
Yeah.
but maybe not necessarily the answer that she was looking for.
Yeah.
All right? And if you read between the lines, which is another thing of communication, it also gave another message. Number one, I might not have liked that lunch very much,
Right.
but I respect her enough because in case she made it, I'm not going to say it tasted bad. Right?
Yeah.
So that is how that can work. Now, if Jewel were to interject and to get in the middle of that message, she could possibly say something like, I ate that lunch and it was good. I want more. Right? So now Chanel would know how Jewel feels about it, but not how I feel, because hearing that, I'm more than likely going to try and say, well, it probably wasn't that bad
Right.
because somebody else liked it.
Yes.
So somebody else has interfered with me sending my message because I don't want to feel like the oddball, right? So you've got to know what your message is. Own your message.
Yes.
Do not be afraid to speak up. And as Joel has said before, be assertive. If the food didn't taste good, the food did not taste good. All right?
Yes. But
Okay.
you communicate that though, in a way that is
Respectfully.
not offensive.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then the final thing that I would like to add, where communication is concerned, always use appropriate language tones.
Yes.
That is so important. Somebody can ask me a question, no. And then somebody asks me the same question, no, please. So yes, I answered, and I communicated myself the way how I know that I feel on the inside.
Yes.
But what will determine whether or not I get an appropriate response is how I approach that individual.
Exactly. And no, I just got a message, a non-verbal message, that we have run out of time. So I'm going to give our ladies just a little 10 seconds to just wrap up their thoughts on communication before I give you your challenge. Chanel?
Communication is very important for getting, for excelling in what you want done. If you have poor communication, then definitely messages will be missed or requests will be missed. So it's important that you give good and proper communication.
Thank you very much, Chanel.
So
Jewel?
we just look at communication. We'll ask you rather to look at communication in terms of being a door that has a lot on it, and the way that you approach, the way that you respond to what is asked, the way that you approach the individual that is asking, that determines whether or not that key is going to be given to you to unlock that door.
I love that one too. Very good. Thank you so much for that, Jewel.
You're
And my
welcome.
final words are basically this. If you fail to communicate effectively, nobody will ever really hear what you want them to hear. All right?
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to issue you a challenge. Now, I want you to take any Barbadian or Bayesian proverb, like harder as you won't hear, own way you can feel, something like that. Record yourself saying this proverb, okay? But do not put sound to it.
Non-verbal communication.
Non-verbal, just let your lips move. And when we get those, we're going to put them up and see if other people can understand what that proverb is. So you can either put it on your HFLE teacher's wall in your class, or you can send it to bagc@gmail.com and just put in the subject communication. We'll know what to do with it. All right? So, on behalf of all of us here, we just want you to remember that HFLE is for all of we. Thanks so much. Stay safe. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.